To understand why dwarfs and trolls don't like each other, you have to go back a long way. They get along like chalk and cheese. Very much like chalk and cheese, really. One is organic, the other isn't, and also smells a bit cheesy. Dwarfs make a living by smashing up rocks with valuable minerals in them, and the silicon-based life form known as trolls are basically rocks with valuable minerals in them. In the wild, they also spend most of the daylight hours dormant, and that's not a situation a rock containing valuable minerals needs to be in when there are dwarves around. And dwarfs hate trolls because, after you've found an interesting seam of valuable minerals, you don't like rocks that suddenly stand up and tear your arm off because you've stuck a pickaxe in their ear. It was a state of permanent interspecies vendetta, and, like all good vendettas, didn't really need a reason anymore. It was enough that it had always existed. Author's note. The Battle of Coombe Valley is the only one known to history where both sides ambushed each other. End author's note. Dwarfs hated trolls because trolls hated dwarfs, and vice versa. The watch lurked in Three Lamps Alley, which was about halfway down Short Street. There was a distant crackle of fireworks. Dwarfs let them off because they drive away evil mind spirits. Trolls let them off because they tasted nice. "Don't see why we can't let them fight it out amongst themselves and then arrest the losers," said Corporal Nobbs. "That's what we always used to do." "The patrician gets really shirty about ethnic trouble," said Sergeant Colin moodily. "He gets really sarcastic about it." A thought struck him. He brightened up a little bit. "Got any ideas, Carrot?" he said. A second thought struck him. Carrot was a simple lad. "Corporal Carrot?" "Sarge?" "Sort this lot out, will you?" Carrot peered around the corner at the advancing walls of trolls and dwarfs. They'd already seen each other. "Right you are, Sergeant," he said. "Lance Constable Cuddy and Detritus don't salute. You come with me." "You can't let him go out there," said Angua. "It's certain death." "Got a real sense of duty, that boy," said Corporal Nobbs. He took a minute length of dog end from behind his ear and struck a match on the sole of his boot. "Don't worry, miss," said Colin. "Lance Constable," said Angua. "What?" "Lance Constable," she repeated. "Not miss. Carrot says I don't have any sex while I'm on duty." To the background of Nobby's frantic coughing, Colin said very quickly, "What I mean is, Lance Constable, young Carrot's got Chrisma. Bags of Chrisma." "Chrisma?" "Bags of it." Elsewhere, the jolting had stopped. Chubby was really annoyed now. Really annoyed. There was a rustling noise. A piece of sacking moved aside, and there, staring at Chubby, was another male dragon. It looked annoyed. Chubby reacted in the only way he knew how. Back at the parade, Carrot stood in the middle of the street, arms folded, while the two new recruits stood just behind him, trying to keep an eye on both approaching marchers at the same time. Colin thought Carrot was simple. Carrot often struck people as simple. And he was. Where people went wrong was thinking that simple meant the same thing as stupid. Carrot was not stupid. He was direct, and honest, and good-natured, and honorable in all his dealings. In Ankh-Morpork, this would normally have added up to stupid in any case, and would have given him the survival quotient of a jellyfish in a blast furnace. But there were a couple of other factors. One was a punch that even trolls had learned to respect. The other was that Carrot was genuinely, almost supernaturally, likable. He got on well with people even while arresting them. He had an exceptional memory for names. For most of his young life, he had lived in a small dwarf colony where there were hardly any other people to know. Then suddenly, he was in a huge city, and it was as if a talent had been waiting to unfold. And he was still unfolding. He waved cheerfully at the approaching dwarfs. "Morning, Mr. Cumblethigh! Morning, Mr. Strong in the Arm!" Then he turned and waved at the leading troll. There was a muffled pop as a firework went off. "Morning, Mr. Backsight!" He cupped his hands. "If you could all just stop and listen to me!" he bellowed. The two marchers did stop, with some hesitation and a general piling up of the people in the back. It was that or walk over Carrot. If Carrot did have a minor fault, it lay in not paying attention to small details around him when his mind was on other things. so the whispered conversation behind his back was currently escaping him.
Huh, it was two in ambush, and your mother was an or...
Now then, gentlemen, said Carrot, in a reasoned and amiable voice, I'm sure there's no reason for this belligerent manner.
You ambushed us too. My great-great-grandfather, he had Coombe Valley. He told me.
In our fair city on such a lovely day, I must ask you, as good citizens of Ankh-Morpork,
Yeah? You even know who your father is, do you?
that, while you must certainly celebrate your proud ethnic folkways, to profit by the example of my fellow officers here, who have sunk their ancient differences,
I smash your head, you loathsome dwarfs.
for the greater benefit of
I could take you with one hand tied behind my back.
the city whose badge they are
You get opportunity. I tie both hands behind your back.
proud and privileged to wear.
Ah!
Oh!
It dawned on Carrot that hardly anyone was paying any attention to him. He turned. Lance Constable Cuddy was upside down, because Lance Constable Detritus was trying to bounce him on the cobbles by his helmet, although Lance Constable Cuddy was putting the position to good effect by gripping Lance Constable Detritus around the knee and trying to sink his teeth into Lance Constable Detritus's ankle. The opposing marchers watched in fascination.
We should do something,
said Angua from the guard's hiding place in the alley.
Well,
Said Sergeant Colin slowly.
it's always very tricky, ethnic.
Can put a foot wrong very easily, said Nobby. Very thin-skinned, your basic ethnic.
Thin-skinned? They're trying to kill one another,
It's cultural.
said Sergeant Colin miserably.
No sense us trying to force our culture on them, is there? That's speciest.
Out in the street, Corporal Carrot had gone very red in the face.
If he lays a finger on either of them with all their friends watching, said Nobby, the plan is we run away like hell.
Vane stood out on Carrot's mighty neck. He stuck his hands on his waist and bellowed, Lance Constable Detritus, salute! It spent hours trying to teach him. Detritus's brain took some time to latch on to an idea, but once it was there, it didn't fade away fast. He saluted. His hand was full of dwarf, so he saluted while holding Lance Constable Cuddy, swinging him up and over like a small, angry club. The sound of their helmets meeting echoed off the buildings, and it was followed a moment later by the crash of them both hitting the ground. Carrot prodded them with the toe of his sandal. Then he turned and strode towards the dwarf marchers, shaking with anger. In the alleyway, Sergeant Colin started to suck the rim of his helmet out of terror. You've got weapons, haven't you? Snarled Carrot at 100 dwarfs. Own up! If the dwarfs who've got weapons don't drop them right this minute, the entire parade, and I mean the entire parade, will be put in the cells. I'm serious about this! The dwarfs in the front row took a step backwards. There was a desultory tinkle of metal objects hitting the ground. All of them? Said Carrot menacingly. That includes you with the black beard trying to hide behind Mr. Hamslinger. I can see you, Mr. Strong in the Arm. Put it down. No one's amused. He's going to die, isn't he? Said Angua quietly.
Funny that, said Nobby. If we was to try it, we'd be little bits of mince, but it seems to work for him.
Charisma,
said Sergeant Colin, who was having to lean on the wall. Do you mean charisma? Said Angua.
yeah, one of them things. Yeah.
How does he manage it?
Don't know, said Nobby. Suppose he's an easy lad to like?
Carrot had turned on the trolls, who were smirking at the dwarf's discomfiture. And as for you, he said, I shall definitely be patrolling around Quarry Lane tonight, and I won't be seeing any trouble, will I? There was a shuffling of huge oversized feet, and a general muttering. Carrot cupped his hand to his ear. I couldn't quite hear, he said. There was a louder mutter, a sort of toccata scored for 100 reluctant voices on the theme of, Yes, Corporal Carrot. Right. Now off you go, and let's have no more of this nonsense. There's good, chaps. Carrot brushed the dust off his hands and smiled at everyone. The trolls looked puzzled. In theory, Carrot was a thin film of grease on the street, but somehow it just didn't seem to be happening. Angua said, He just called 100 trolls good chaps. Some of them are just down off the mountains. Some of them have got lichen on them.
Smartest thing on a troll,
said Sergeant Colin. And then the world exploded.